Hello and welcome to Archcom Media. My name is Madden Valentine, and this is The Road to State. For most of the year, Archbold is a quiet place, but in the winter of 2005, something extraordinary happened. A group of young athletes led by a determined coach and fueled by their own relentless drive started their journey that would put their names in Archbold history as one of the best basketball teams ever. This was a team like no other, a group of boys bound together not just by talent, but by something deeper: pride, passion, and a willingness to give 100% all the time. This is The Road to State. Brad Hurst had this to say.
We were a very close-knit group. A lot of us didn't play another sport, so it was just basketball. So we worked out in the fall time together. And
Coach Doug Kraus had this to say.
I think our guys hung together after the games. They'd go there, somebody's house or whatever.
I thought we had a great demeanor, and we cared for each other, and we played hard for each other.
Buddy Babcock had this to say.
So you tend to see where everyone's at, and a lot of joking around, like keeping things casual, having a lot of fun.
We were friends off the court too. We hung out together, and we saw each other in the hallways. We always said hi, and that's always a good thing too. You're always playing for your brother, is what we always said.
And the guys on the bench, the guys that maybe were your role players. You see them on the bench, and they're into the ball game. They're up and at rooting for the team. And one of our starters went off the bench. He was up. He wasn't over there sulking. He was up rooting for his team.
Kirk Weldy said this.
Yeah, the chemistry was we were one of the best friends off the court.
I think as the season went on, we just gelled and had great chemistry.
And when one game, one day, somebody wasn't up, we had another guy stepping up. And so that was always cool to see. And
when we got on the court, we knew what we needed to get done. We had some arguments. We had guys pushing.
I think we had five. We had five seniors that year, and every one of us played together since 7th grade.
It's where we all bought in at an early age that we needed to stick together in order to do that. And I think from being third graders, just learning the game and being competitive, to our senior year, we knew guys' attitudes. We knew guys, the way that they moved, that how they passed, and everything that kind of led up to that really kind of put us up for a chemistry factor that I think was far above most.
If you're all there for the same goal, and that's trying to get a W for the letters on your T-shirt, your jersey, not the ones on the back. And so that was kind of the cool thing, was everyone was there for the common goal.
Coach Joe Frank said this.
Any team sport, if there's not some chemistry, you're in deep trouble, because at the end of the day, any good team would say that they're playing not just for the school, but for their teammates as well.
The 2005 Archbold High School boys basketball team included Buddy Babcock, David Borchard, Dan Borchard, Kirk Weldy, Brad Hurst, Gene Gehring, Patrick Shannon, Josh Johnson, and Zach Zimmerman. They were guided by the legendary coach Doug Kraus and assisted by Coach Joe Frank and Coach Mike Kennedy. It all started in the summer before, where workouts and open gyms were starting to begin.
There were open gyms in the morning. Matter of fact, the gym was open and the weight room were open for about 2 hours each day in the morning, but then also 3 to 4 days a week for 2.5 to 3 hours in the evening.
And I know the summer beforehand was a huge drive and opportunity for us to kind of get rolling on that thing.
It was pickup games. Basically, you'd get a group 5-on-5, whoever was there, and basically if you lost, the next 5 are in, and so that kind of thing. And then we also had a summer league
where that was our goal, and we knew we could make it there, but it was going to be a journey to get there. We knew how hard it took, because we had an opportunity as sophomores to see how much effort and
finding a lot of alumni. Not just ones that graduated 3-4 years before. Some guys that had been out of school for 15-20 years were there playing.
The main thing was having some success the year or two before. My sophomore year, we made a state run. My junior year, we got beat in the district. So I think that was kind of the standing point of saying we need to get back to where we want to be. And I know the summer beforehand was a huge drive and opportunity for us to kind of get rolling on that thing.
This team was different. A lot of them had been playing together for many years, dating back to elementary school where the youth leagues and Parks and Rec basketball took place. They had a passion for the game from a young age, unmatched by any other team. Heading into the season, they were unsure of how good they were going to be. They knew they had the potential, but they just weren't sure how much potential they had. What were some of your thoughts going into the season? Did you think you were going to have a pretty good season, or was a state appearance not really on your mind as an assistant coach?
It was on our mind. That group of guys was driven. They were gym rats. They spent a lot of time in the gym, especially that. Well, I shouldn't say that whole class. There were several seniors and many underclassmen in there as well.
Well, I don't know. Too many times you go into the seasons thinking you're going to be in the Final Four.
Before the season, I think we had some pretty big goals. State was definitely one of those. Before, we lost 3 really good seniors from the year before. But had a very good core coming back, and we had some pretty big goals. NWL and trying to get back to state was a big one.
So, yeah, I think that was something that we don't really talk about. This is our goal is to get to state, but we all knew that was the unspoken destination that we're all hoping for.
To say we were state caliber, you just never know. There's so many things that happen along the way. And, of course, back in '96, we felt we had a really good team, and things worked out for that team. But going into the 05 team, we knew we were going to be pretty good.
We had a lot of confidence. We were there was a group of us that had been playing since we were third graders.
I knew that we would have the people to compete with whomever we were playing to get to state, but you just had to perform on the big stage, and we were able to do that.
It was kind of cool to see the '96 team get there and make a run, and we had some success early in the 2000 era. Sometimes anytime you go to state, there's some luck on your side, and we had a couple games where we got a little lucky and found a way to win. But it was one of those things where I think all of us across the board, even the guys on the bench, I think knew we had an opportunity to get there, and we had to do everything we could to get to that final point.
Well, 7th grade we lost 1 game. 8th grade we went undefeated. Freshman year we went undefeated. The sophomore year we made it to the Final Four, and the year after that I think we had 4 or 5 losses that year. We expected to be good. We knew we had depth, but I don't think initially we thought we were gonna be as good as what we ended up being.
The season started off quite well as they won their first 2 games. The Wauseon Indians were the first game of the year, and the Archbold Blue Streaks dominated, winning 72-42. This set the precedent for how the season was going to go. The Streaks were here not just to win, but to dominate. Their second game was much of the same, winning 62-39 against a quality Kalida team. However, the team did face some challenging setbacks that year, starting with their third game, the Evergreen game. This was a massive league game and was back and forth all night. The Streaks were not playing well, and in the final seconds, an Evergreen player sank a 3 a few feet inside half court to win 45-44.
The Evergreen game was a rough one. It was a league game, and we didn't play very well. We found an opportunity to at least stay in the ball game. Came down to a last-second shot, which was a dagger that they put it in and found a way to beat us.
So the long-range three-pointer was by Evergreen. The kid threw it up, and he was within probably 3 feet of half court, tossed it up. It barely came out of his hand, and the buzzer sounded, and nothing but net.
After the Evergreen game, the team refocused and stuck together. They proceeded to go on a tear, winning their next 11 of 12 games by 14 or more points.
Absolutely. I think we thought, like you just said, kind of going through the season nonchalant, and that kind of woke us up a little bit. Plus, that was also a big loss in the league. That was one of our games that we lost in the league too. So that was a big motivation. We had to get back focused. Yeah, that was a very hard thing to do. You always got to look for the next game. I think that was our mentality, to go win every game. Unfortunately, we lost 1 game to Evergreen at the buzzer beater. But after that, we kept going forward. And, Coach Krause, Coach Frank, and Coach Kennedy, they kept us focused on the next game rather than looking forward to the big games. You always want to play every opponent to the best of your abilities.
This leads us to the Tenora game, and possibly the biggest setback of the season. The game itself was not hard as the Streaks dominated and won 77-43. But as one player said, when Josh went down and did not get up, we knew it was bad. Josh Johnson, a star defensive point guard, in one of the last games of the regular season, went down with a torn knee ligament.
Which, even if he would have a little bit of an ailment or an injury, usually he's up and ready to go. When we went into the locker room afterwards, after that game, and seeing him, and you knew that it was worse than what we had thought. And then when we found out he had tore it, it was like, well, that was a huge loss, because majority of the time Josh couldn't. He wasn't a shooter, but he was one of the worst guys you wanted to have guarding you because he was just so quick.
And then we lost our point guard. He blew his ACL out in the Tenor game, so that kind of refocused us too at the end of the season.
As the season went on, we had a huge injury. Josh Johnson went down, so we missed him. He was a really good point guard for us. And
the big thing too with Josh Johnson getting hurt, he was our point guard. He was our leader at the ball handling position, and when he went down, we knew it was bad. Josh was one of those guys where he was the hard nose, did everything else that you didn't need to do to score. He was that guy that we always relied on to put defense on pressure on the point guard position, to handle the ball, to get the ball to the right people. And when we lost him, that was a little bit of a setback to say we need to regroup and get back forward.
The team bounced back from the Tenora game and finished the regular season on a 17-game win streak with impressive wins against Defiance, 60-38, Napoleon, 56-49, and a very good Van Wert team, 59-55.
Another game that sticks out, now I think back, was our last game of the regular season at Van Wert in their old gym over there, and they're kicking us. This team, we're down double figures, close to 20 in the first half. They had this Moonshower kid. He put a dunk down that I can still remember. Anyway, we come back and win that game by 4 at the end of fourth quarter. In fact, I was so pumped up, I told Coach Ken, go buy pizza. Right next door, we had pizza on the way home.
Their postseason started off with a sectional final win against Fairview, 60-46, which the Streaks found themselves down in the fourth quarter and came back to win.
Even opening game, Fairview, we played Fairview in the sectional finals. We had a bye, so we at Fairview, and we're going to the fourth quarter, we're behind. And we had to come through the fourth quarter. I think we had a good run on them that got us a little cushion, and we ended up winning.
The Streaks then moved on to the district tournament, where Coach Kraus commented that this was probably the hardest district tournament he's ever been a part of. The district included wins over 2 state-ranked opponents in Delphus St. John's and St. Henry.
But then we get to the district tournament, and that was interesting. The district tournament probably was one of the toughest district tournaments we had to go through in my entire career, no matter what year, maybe even today, all the way through.
The Delphus game was a tough one, back and forth all night, but the Streaks came out focused and ready to give everything they had, just as they had done every game before.
We had to go down to Ohio Northern, and we matched up with Delphus St. John in the opener, and that was going to be a really difficult game. That was going to be a tough ball game. In fact, it was such a tough ball game, I decided to set it out.
Coach Kraus had some, we thought maybe heart-related issues. It didn't turn out to be
Luckily,
anything, that was going to be long-lasting, but he needed to stay in the hospital for observation, which left Coach K with his head coaching debut, if I'm not mistaken, and that.
Well, the funny thing about that, not funny, you look back at it's funny now, but the day before, we played on a Thursday, and the day before the game, we're practicing, and Delphus St. John had this stud player, named by Reynolds was his last name. He was really good. And we had a young guy, Wade Rickner, off our second scout team. He was playing Reynolds, and we could not stop Wade Rickner. Wade Rickner was just absolutely killing us. And I think I got a little bit frustrated, I guess would be a good word, and I stood up when I was kneeling. I stood up, and I kind of maybe lost my balance and maybe lightheaded. And then, of course, Coach Frank here, who's got a big heart, he called Tina, the trainer, and all of a sudden, all I know, the EMS is coming down. So anyway, make a long story short, I did have to go to the hospital, and they checked me out, and I did everything okay. I mean, but then they took me down to Toledo the next day, and they did a heart cath, and everything was fine there. In fact, I was ready to come home and get on the bus and go to the game. But as I was in the recovery after that heart cath, I got sick. I was vomiting all over the place. In fact, I then at that time I said, "There's no way I could go." It's getting later. I called Coach Ken up. I said, "Hey, I'm not going to. I mean, you're going to do it." And of course, he was a little bit edgy on that. But hey, things worked out. And of course, listening to that game against Delphus, what a game that was! I had to listen to the radio. If I had a bad heart, I would have had a heart attack listening.
So yeah, it was definitely a well-earned victory. The Delphus St. John's game went down the wire. I believe it was a 1-point game, right?
I think Hursty made a couple foul shots to put us ahead, and then they had a last shot that didn't go in.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays' game-winning shot rolled out of the basket, and the Streaks moved on with a 50-49 win in the district semifinal. After a close game in the district semifinal, the Streaks moved on to the district final against St. Henry. This was another tough team, but the Streaks were prepared. They battled hard all night and played together as a team.
We were down double digits after the first quarter. They were on fire, but we crawled back and we beat them to get to the regionals.
And then going back, I'll tell you what, going back to next night or 2 nights later and playing St. Henry, who was very, very talented. And that was an unbelievable district tournament. And winning those 2 games was absolutely huge.
What was it, the Stahl kid that had like 20 the first quarter against us?
Yeah, he had 5 threes the first quarter.
Yeah. And Danny Borchert fortunately had about 33 that night.
He did.
The Blue Streaks pulled out a tough win by 5 points, beating state-ranked St. Henry 63-58 to send them to regionals. The Blue Streaks had lost in the regional tournament the year before, so the team was hungry to get back and avenge what happened last year. What they didn't know was their regional semifinal game would be one for the history books. The team was slated to play Woodmore in the regional semifinal. The game was tight all game, but some poor plays and early turnover caused the Streaks to get into an early deficit.
We were down, I want to say, probably 10 to 13 points with about maybe 2 minutes left to go, and we found a way to win, or found a way to get to overtime. Dan Borchert hit a 3 to tie it up.
The Streaks were down 9 points with 1 minute and 8 seconds left in this regional semifinal game. Now, if you're a basketball fan, you understand that this is extremely unlikely to come back from. But as far as the players said, they still had confidence.
Well, that was against Woodmore down at BGSU, the old Anderson Arena, and yeah, that was tough. I mean, we just couldn't get things to fall, and they had a kid by the name of Rosenberger. Yeah, and he was all Ohio player. In fact, funny thing about it, him and Weldy roomed together at Ashland College later on. But this kid's a stud player. Late in the game, we're up like 3. We're down 3, 44-41, and this kid goes down with an injury. Broken ankle. Yeah, and they missed so many foul shots in the last minute and 20-some seconds of that game, and we'd come down and score. We're still down 3, 44-41, and they missed 2 foul shots with like 8 seconds or so under 10, and we come down, we throw it around a couple times, and Borchert came down and got a 3 at top of the key, miss. I forget, Weldy might have rebounded it. Anyway, they got kicked to Hursty, who I think kicked it to Borchert in the deep corner, and he at the buzzer he made a 3 to tie it. And
it got a little loud in Anderson Arena from the blue and gold section.
And yeah, it was huge. And then we went on to make a bunch of foul shots in the overtime and beat them by like 8 or 10 or something like that. But yeah, that was interesting.
I can't lie to say both were going through your head. We never really got into that deficit. The one thing I would tell you from the coaches at the Archbold level, it's not over until that buzzer goes off.
Coach Krause, Coach Frank, and Coach Kennedy, again, they kept us focused for that 1 minute and making sure we fouled the right guys. They missed some free throws that they needed to make, and we capitalized on that, hitting a couple shots late, and then even the buzzer beater, Borch hit that last buzzer beater at literally was 0 seconds on the clock to send us into overtime.
Foul shots. I mean, I can't remember the stats, but you look that up. We didn't miss many foul shots in times, everybody were pretty much draining them. And next thing you know, chipping away, and then boom, there you are. And now it's like, okay, now we're up. And it was awesome.
You know, looking back, I think we were just so focused during that game. It's crazy to think down 9 with a minute to go, to come back and at least tie it to go into overtime.
But yeah, I would say both probably were in my mind at some point in time to say, oh my goodness, this could be the end. But again, found a way to win and made an exciting moment out of that.
At the moment, I think we were just playing basketball. Now looking back, it's pretty cool how that all happened out.
Woodmore missed many free throws and the Streaks capitalized. Down 3 with time running down, Dan Borchard, an Archbold scoring legend, came running down the court, pulled up and shot it. The ball seemed to hang in the air, and finally it went in. They had done it. They came back from being down 9 by hitting a 3 as the time expired to tie the game. The crowd went nuts. After that shot, there was not a doubt in anybody's mind that the Streaks were going to win in overtime. They went on to win 59-47 in overtime and are headed to the regional final. The regional final game was shaping up to be a great game, but the Streaks possibly played their best basketball of the season. Dan Borchert came out on fire, almost outscoring the Royals of Cuyahoga Valley Christian Academy by himself, pouring in 28 points. The Streaks' defense was stifling, forcing turnover after turnover, causing the Royals to struggle. The score ended up being a lopsided 56-30. The Streaks knew what was at stake and came out on fire. This win sent them back to the state final. The team that stood before the Archbold Blue Streaks was unlike any team they saw before. Ironton, who came into the game at 26-0, was bigger, stronger, and more physical than any team they saw. The Streaks knew they were underdog, but they seemed to embrace that feeling. No one expected the Streaks to win, and yet they came ready to battle.
Yeah, I would say we were the underdogs, and we kind of took that. And we heard it all week that we weren't going to win, and so we did have that underdog mentality.
That was tough. It at least gave us an opportunity to prepare the week before. I mean, we did a lot of scouting reports as much as we could. That was back in the day where you didn't have all the resources and technology to do it. I know our coaches prepared us as well as possible going into that game, and they've been down at the state tournament a couple times, so they know the atmosphere, they know the game. We thought we could win. There was not a doubt in our mind that we were going in there saying, hey, we made it to the state semifinals, and if we, whatever happens. But I think at the end of the day, we knew we could beat them.
Well, you know what? That was one thing when we got we had the opportunity to get to Columbus a few times, and we always had some tough matchups. And Ironton was a huge matchup. They were, I think, number 2 in the state at the time. But I thought we had a good matchup with them overall.
In a game where we could have probably just laid down and died and lost by 50, but no, we kept it in because, again, hey, we win. We're going to state championship.
The game started, and right from the get-go, it was going to be a dogfight. It was a physical game from the start, and the Streaks were ready to handle it.
That was probably one of the most physical games I've ever played. They had some tough cookies on their team. They had guys that could play. They had guys, push you around, and in tournament time, let alone, refs let the game play.
And that's where, and I come from the physical aspect of things. So on that team, playing against a team like that, when you're in it and there's a loose ball, you gotta set the tone. Whether you're diving in and you're throwing a shoulder or smoking a guy, it's, hey, we got to get the ball and you got to start that.
I know we battled up against some pretty physical guys. Ironton, they're kind of a football town in the first part, so relatively speaking, they were physical from the get-go. And
Dan, as good of a shooter as he was that game, he just wasn't on his mark. Not having Johnson there as the that Achilles heel on our defense, it was tough.
We didn't shoot it very well the first half. I know we were, I don't know, shell-shocked, or it was the gymnasium and all that stuff. We didn't shoot very well, but
they made a couple baskets. We had a couple turnovers, which kind of hurt us. And
but they had a lot of strength, a lot of size, so they worked the inside.
It came down to defense, and we crawled back in that second half. Unfortunately, it just wasn't to be that day. We lost to a very good Ironton team.
We did get it down to under there was like 9 or so going in, and we got down to 6. And in fact, I think Gino, our freshman, Garing, hit a 3 that put us within 3.
So 4 points. 4 points in a game where, quite honestly, if you looked at stats and the size of the players on the roster, you'd be like, I just don't think this is going to work out. But, hey, we gave it our all.
The Streaks battled an undefeated Ironton team down to the wire, but poor shooting and some costly mistakes made the Streaks' unbelievable season come to an end.
Yeah, it was definitely sad because your goal is to win, and that was our mentality all year. And you don't prepare to lose. You don't prepare to have that to be your last game. So yes, it was definitely sad. I still remember walking off the court thinking this is the last time I'll ever walk off a basketball court as a player. But then after a couple hours, couple days, couple weeks, it did feel very good to get down there into the Final Four. Not too many teams get down there. And Coach Krause always said too, there's only 4 teams in the state of Ohio that win the state championship in all 4 divisions. So, just to be down there was an honor. Yes, it was not a very good feeling there at the end, but again, later it definitely is a great accomplishment.
I would say a little bit of both. I mean, obviously going in the game that you think you could win and you fall short, you're always sad about it. And that was the last time we got to play together as a team, knowing most of us were seniors on that team. That there's some sadness in that aspect of it, but we talked about winning the league. We talked about winning sectional championship, district championship, regional championship. And like I said, to make it to state doesn't take just the building. You got to get lucky. You got to have things fall in the right place. And to know that we made an accomplishment through there was positive. A little bit of all emotions in that standpoint.
They lost 70-66 to a very good team and had nothing to be ashamed of. As the Archbold Blue Streaks watched their season come down to an end after a hard-fought battle, there were mixed emotions down on the court. One thing is for certain, the community was there to support them throughout the entire tournament run and could not have been more proud of this team.
Because you're not just playing for your school and your team, your teammates, but in some cases your parents also played there for the same coach potentially. Your grandparents most likely played there, and there's a good chance that great grandparents played with the great the 2 coaches before. So
oh, they were fantastic. I mean, just to be able to walk into a restaurant or a grocery store and, hey, good luck this weekend, we'll be supporting you. Some of the biggest feelings were the fans in the crowd. I mean, I'll go back to Wauseon. I remember we played Wauseon, and we got there for shoot around about 4:15, 4 o'clock, 4:30, and there was a line out the door. The fans support you. They pick you up, they encourage you, and win or loss, they're always there to be by your side. But the community is one of those things where it's a special community, especially in Archbold.
I think our community always supported us. Down at BG, we had some amazing crowds. We had great success down at BG over the years, and our fans were right there all the time.
Those are back in the days when lines would form the hallway here at the high school, and they'd be some long lines, people waiting to get the 2 tickets they were allowed to buy or whatever it was. There were restrictions back then, and those are the fun times when you look back on all these years at Archbold. I remember way back when the high school was uptown, there'd be people waiting outside, snaking outside, waiting to get into the lobby at the now middle school to buy a ticket.
And that is what makes and breaks a really great season from a mediocre. All your classmates in the student section. I mean, dude, that north end from front row to the top, wall to wall, all kids screaming. And that's how it was down at BG. Hours before the game, there was a long waiting list. And it was a great following to Columbus that we had from all of our fans back here. If you can get the bond and the common goal to go after the same thing, good things will happen. But it's a lot of hard work, and if you put the time in, put the work ethic in, the rewards are great. They really are.
Absolutely. The crowds were amazing. I can still think of the crowd at Ohio Northern. It was just packed, a huge stadium. And then obviously BGSU at the old the old Falcon Arena there, they were very loud, and especially when we hit the buzzer beater to go into overtime against Woodmore, that was probably the loudest I've ever heard. I couldn't even hear coaches in the huddle just because it was so loud. The community here at Archbold is amazing. Again, all the support with the signs and everything was great too.
Our thanks to Coach Doug Kraus and Coach Joe Frank, as well as Brad Hurst, Buddy Babcock, and Kirk Weldy for sitting down with me. I'm Madden Valentine, and this has been a production of ArchCom Media. Subscribe for more great content.